Les gens, les boxeurs, un style très agressif. Ils ont ces t-shirts un peu à la Tyson, là, les shorts du cou, un petit peu.
And when I say you must obey, just like the both of you, touch my head.
Et là, Vargas se sont mis.
Ouais, le crochet. Magnifique shot.
Ah, c'est un repos au corps.
Et ouais, le crochet au foie, il a touché.
Ah, c'est un repos au corps.
Pendant Bisbois,
Ouais,
encore un
pas
rouge.
au corps.
Allez, très dur là, qui a arrêté.
Oui, forcément, elle remet un genou au sol.
Et alors, regarde son point. Ça va dans tous les sens, la part des deux boxeuses. Et tout ça par du bon point. Et la touche par du bon point. Elle a du mal, Viviane.
Et elle a tiré à la récupérer. Il va à la bouche à
Okay, we'll start with this. Well, Mikey Garcia had this to say in regards to just what's going on. That the fight that interests him the most is the Manny Pacquiao fight. Now, I don't think you had to scroll up a Blackson Scene article to know that, to come to that conclusion. He did address the proposition that he may be facing Jesse Vargas on DAZN. He addressed it. He said, yeah, that they made him that offer, but, you know, he hasn't negotiated it yet, which pretty much tells us that those talks aren't as far along as they would need to be for us to feel confident that that's going to be his very next move. Mikey Garcia remains indecisive, and I said it in my previous video. Call it indecision or call it shopping himself around, weighing his options. One way or another, it's anybody's fucking guess what Mikey Garcia is going to do next. But I'll tell you what, time is of the essence. Okay, you lose to Errol Spence. You didn't get knocked out, that's a good thing, you know?
Surprise.
Didn't get knocked out, that's a good thing. But you gotta bounce back, okay? Because there's a lot of things going on right now in the sport of boxing, a lot of big things. And Mikey Garcia's latest news is no news.
Nada.
I mean, that's what's going on. This is the what have you done for me lately sport. And I don't say that to slight Mikey Garcia so much as, okay, well, what are you trying to do? You know, you got a lot of options, but you gotta pick one. You gotta do something. As far as Jesse Vargas, you know, John Dunleavy left a very interesting comment on my previous video regarding just this same subject, and he brought to light something very interesting about Jesse Vargas. It is true, you know, this guy, he's just got shit luck with significant fights happening for him, you know. That he was supposed to be fighting Brook, but that didn't come off.
Nope.
There was some talks of a Liam Smith fight, but, you know, Liam Smith is going to be in action very soon, and it ain't going to be against Jesse Vargas. We know what happened with the Munguia fight. He tried to catchweight him, so that fight didn't fucking happen. And it's looking like the luck, or the lack thereof, from Jesse Vargas is about to strike again, and this Mikey Garcia thing might not fucking happen. So what should Jesse Vargas do in this situation? I'll tell you what the fuck he should do. I'll tell you.
What?
I'll tell you.
What?
Okay? If you don't want to go down to 147 for whatever reason, you know, maybe the only reason you were going to go down there was because it was Mikey Garcia. And now that it's not Mikey, maybe you don't want to go down there. Okay, so you want to stay at 54.
All right.
Stay at 54. Okay, you can fight Kell Brook. You were supposed to fight him a very long time ago, back when both of you guys were champions. You signed your end of the contract. He did not sign his. He chose to go up there, daring to be great, daring to get 8 by Gennady Golovkin. You know what happened. But now, here and now, there is an opportunity to be Kell Brook's very next opponent. I mean, what the fuck has Brook been doing the last couple of months? Okay, you didn't get the Crawford fight. You gotta move on. You gotta do something. And, you know, Vargas versus Brook, still a decent fight. Now, if Jesse, you know, maybe he's willing to go to 147, even if it's not for Mikey. Okay, if this guy
Yeah.
can do 147, if he can still do it,
Yeah.
okay, then he should look to go fight Terrence Crawford for what he's got. Yeah. Top Rank might be willing to pay him something interesting, because Crawford, in terms of opponent options, until the PBC decides to stop hiding their welterweights, you know, Crawford needs opponents. In all likelihood, he beats Egidijus Kavaliauskas. But then what?
Yeah.
All right? Jesse Vargas is an option. That's all I'm saying. Open up a channel, talk with those people, see what you can work out. Yeah, Crawford's an option. Another option that would not require Jesse Vargas to go over to the Top Rank side of things is sitting right there on DAZN.
What are you talking
Talking about Virgil Ortiz. Sensational fighter, strong puncher, good boxing background, good boxing. But this kid can really fucking punch. But it's one of those situations to where you wonder, okay, how long is he going to be this talented puncher? You know, because like I said in my previous video, Guys step up in class, all of a sudden they aren't knockout artists anymore. Well, what about Jesse Vargas versus Virgil Ortiz? I like that fight. I think the people over there in the West Coast,
They'll like it.
Southwest as well, I think they'd like that fight also. That's an option. Jesse Vargas is a man about town. He has that air about him. He's about his business. And if the Munguia fight don't work out, it didn't work out, okay, you do something else. This Mikey Garcia shit doesn't pan out, you do something else. Those are some options. Virgil Ortiz, Terrence Crawford, maybe a Brook fight at 54. You know, there's things to do. There's ways to go about things. There are things to do. In other news, the unified junior middleweight champion, Julian Williams, is going to be making his first defense of those 2 world titles in his own backyard at the Light Curve Center early next year in January against Jason Rosario. I'm going to be honest that this is not a fight that I'm excited about, although I won't complain. I won't complain because I think that Julian Williams has so earned the right to take his foot off the gas a bit. What better opponent options are out there are busy anyway, so it's not like he could be fighting them. I wouldn't have minded an Arislandi Lara fight. I wouldn't have minded that, but you know, like I said, I don't want to be overly critical. I don't, you know. So if he's going to keep busy with Jason and he's going to have a little showcase fight, because that's what I think this is going to be. I think this is going to be a showcase fight. We'll talk about why. I'm not going to complain. I think he's earned the right, and it is after this that I will raise my level of expectations. As far as Jason Rosario, he's a kid who's been around the block. He actually beat Jorge Cota. He's got 1 pro loss, and that loss came at the hands of Nathaniel Gilmore, who Julian Williams has beat already. As far as Jason's characteristics as a fighter, I'll say that, look, the kid can punch, all right? He's a good, basic kind of fighter. But what I immediately noticed about him ahead of this fight, you know, ahead of what is to be his fight with Julian Williams, is this kid's got slow feet. You know, it's a trade-off when you got slow feet. It's a trade-off when you're a flat-footed fighter. That, you know, you're not as light on your toes as somebody else, so you don't really got that mobility, but you do generate power from the ground up. So it's a trade-off. It's just that Jason's power is not so devastating that standing on your whole foot can be justified ahead of this fight. Because Julian Williams, you know, you try to inch forward, you try to be a slow plotter with this guy trying to nail him with a big shot, you're gonna get a rude awakening.
You might.
We look at the hand speed of Jason, and, you know, Jason really doesn't have the fastest hands either, or the tightest defense, and that means he's open for counter shots. You know, ahead of the Jarrett Hurd fight with Julian Williams, I said, mid-range to inside, Julian Williams has actually got pretty good hand speed, you know, mid-range to inside. So Jason go get, you know, if he goes getting froggy in there, tries to land a big shot, I'm sure that Julian Williams will surprise him the same way that Justin DeLoach surprised him a couple of times in their fight. He surprised him with some counter shots. Jason Rosario is there for the counter shots. It's for this reason I think that Julian's going to light him up. I do. I think that defensively, Julian is better, and offensively, Julian is better. In the realm of physical attributes, I think that Julian is the better athlete with the better gas tank and the better hand speed. So I've definitely got Julian winning that fight. And like I said, it's not a fight that I'm excited about. I view it as a showcase fight. I think he's earned the right to one of those, upsetting Jarrett Hurd in his own backyard, winning those 2 world titles the way that he did. I think he's earned the right for a little showcase fight, and it's after this that my expectations will be raised. It's just that, be honest when I say this, it's hard to conjure up any enthusiasm for this kind of fight, that's all. And when you have a sensational performance like the one Julian had over Jarrett Hurd earlier this year, you want to build on that, you know? You really do want to, you use that momentum, you go into a good fight, another good fight. I mean, it's physically taxing, it is, and that's why I understand them taking their foot off the gas. Maybe they don't want to put Julian through the ringer too much, I get it. Just saying that I don't think that this is going to be as conducive towards the buzz that Julian got after that fight going into this fight. You know, yeah, maybe he gets a sensational knockout or something like that, and it lends itself to his buzz that way, lends itself to his momentum that way. But, you know, whatever the case, keep your eyes peeled for this in early January of next year. And finally, we come to some post-fight comments that have been circulating around from Luis Ortiz in the wake of the vicious knockout he received from Deontay Wilder. He's saying that at the time he hit the deck, his head was clear. The count was a little bit too fast, maybe it was, but he could have went on. And he's a little bit angry about that. He's pissed because he feels he could have went on. And, you know, in that situation, outside looking in, which is all any of us can do, including the third man in the ring, which in that fight was Kenny Bayless. All anyone can do in that situation is assess the condition of the fighter and make the determination, the judgment, as to whether or not he looks like he can go on. That's all we can do, because none of us are mind readers. We don't know what's going on in Luis Ortiz's mind once he hits the deck. We don't know. Maybe he did have a clear head. Maybe he didn't, and he's just putting on a brave face. Regardless of what was really going on in Luis Ortiz's mind, outside looking in, as far as Kenny Bayless was concerned, he looked all about done.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that he looked all about done to me, too. I mean, he had this look on his face like somebody burnt the mac and cheese. Okay, this guy doesn't look like a guy who can take another one of those. It's been a hard year for boxers, man. We see what happened earlier this year with Maxim Dadashev, Patrick Day, the most recent casualty, which wasn't even under the hot lights. It was in sparring. It was in preparation for Michael Zarafa's upcoming fight.
His rematch.
With Jeff Horn, his rematch. You know, Dwight Ritchie. That guy died from a body shot, you know? A body shot. Collapsed. He couldn't be revived after that. You think about all this stuff, and I'm sure that the referees are thinking about this kind of stuff. And you don't want to be the guy that let the fight go on longer than it should have, especially with a guy that's Luis Ortiz's age. I mean, let's be serious here, folks. You know, we talk a lot of shit, we trade a lot of barbs, a lot of anecdotes, we have our critiques, we have our criticisms. But I don't think anybody wants to see a family man like Luis Ortiz, who's got a wife and daughter at home. He's got people to come home to. He's an older gentleman, and nobody wants to see a guy like that get hurt. You know, you want the guy to be able to go home, you know. Whatever happens, but you want the guy to be able to go home. And I think that Kenny Bayless made the right call. I mean, you know, Ortiz didn't look like he could go on. He didn't look that way to me. You know, some people might feel so inclined to use this as ammunition to levy criticisms towards Deontay Wilder. You know, saying that the count was quick, referees in the pocket, all that jazz. I don't really think that's what was going on here. Not in this situation, you know, given everything that's happened. I mean, you're going to have a lot more conscientious refs given the number of casualties this year in a sport of boxing. You got guys dying from injuries sustained in the ring. You got the latest guy, he dies from a body shot in camp, in sparring, and you know, helping some other guy prepare. You know, Dwight Ritchie was only 27 years old, that guy. Okay, I'm sure that these kinds of situations are weighing heavy on every single referee's mind right now. I don't want to be the guy that let it go on too long. And Luis Ortiz's face, the glare that he had in his eyes, maybe he did have a clear head. And, you know, maybe he did. Maybe he had a clear head. And maybe it's because Wilder knocked out whatever was in there. So, yeah, it's clear. It's all clear. That would explain the glare. That would explain that look on his face like somebody ran over his cat. But, you know, Luis Ortiz is talking about moving on from this. He still wants to line himself up for a big situation, though I'm not sure how much time he actually has to do that.
Not a lot.
I mean, the biggest situation that he could be involved in would be to face the winner of Joshua versus Ruiz. But the winner of that fight really is all but spoken for, whether it's Anthony Joshua or Andy Ruiz. You got mandatories lining up the wazoo, you know? And that's outside of the same old talking points about unifying and all that stuff, you know? There's not much chance of Luis Ortiz landing the winner of that fight. Let's just be honest. And you know, he is a PBC guy, and we know how they operate. So what guys are on his side of the street that he could swap punches with? There's F.A. Ajagba, but that's really not a big money fight, is it? I mean, that's really not worth Luis Ortiz's while, at least not for what he's looking for. He's looking for a payday. Okay, that's what he's looking for. And I don't think he's going to get that with the likes of an Ajagba. I don't think he's going to get that with the likes of a Kaunaki.
I don't think so.
Or Charles Martin. You know, I mean, unless he's willing to expand his horizons, I mean, he would have to do that in order to be involved in a significant fight that people are going to pay attention to. Not only would he have to think outside of the box, the PBC's box, not only would he have to think outside of that, but he would also have to take some risks. Yes, he would. In order to be involved in a big fight that could get him $1 million or more dollars than that, you know, I mean, yeah, I don't know what, Dillian White could get you a payday, but that's only if he's receptive. He could get you a payday. I think that Derek Chisora, the same is true of Derek Chisora, even though he's kind of spoken for too. There's still talks of him versus Parker. Those talks are very much alive. But in the UK, in the domestic pay-per-view market in the United Kingdom, those two guys actually could get you a payday. They could. The thing is Luis Ortiz willing to go over there? And even if he is, are those guys receptive to him? You know, because they might look at him and say, well, what am I going to win from this old guy? All they're going to say if I beat him is that Wilder already ruined him. So what do I get out of this deal?
Fair play.
You know, you got Jarrell Miller on the top rank side of things. That already makes the situation kind of hairy. But yeah, you know, there are those PBC versus Top Rank conversations happening in regards to Wilder versus Fury 2, that it's going to be that kind of card. I don't think we're going to see Luis Ortiz in action as soon as early next year, but, beyond that, I don't know. I mean, maybe he could get a Miller fight, but does Miller even want that fight? Because Miller's raising his nose up at Joe Joyce. And Miller needs to fight someone with a pulse, but, that's neither here nor there, because who knows if that's even a realistic proposition. I mean, like I said, Luis Ortiz is on the PBC side of things, and we know how they operate, so that really does limit the pool of options as far as who can get him the kind of payday that a man his age needs before he decides to bow out. Because that's got to be on his mind, even if he doesn't say it to the press. Even if he goes out there, puts on a brave face, says, I'm not done. I still want to be involved in big situations. And you can say that, but the reality of things might differ. It's got to be somewhere in his mind that he's approaching the end of his career. Might need one more payday. How does he get it, and what does he do in the in-between time while one rolls around? Because Luis Ortiz, he ain't got all fucking day. Because look. The division actually does have a lot of interesting situations for one so willing to be involved in them. For example, I wouldn't mind seeing Luis Ortiz versus the likes of an Oscar Rivas, or a Daniel Dubois, or a Joe Joyce. But are those actually realistic propositions? That's the thing. I mean, we could sit here mixing and matching names all fucking day, but for all the effort we put into that, none of those might be realistic propositions. They might not. Oh. So I am truly bewildered as to, who's Luis Ortiz going to fight next, and what big situations can he be involved in within a reasonable time frame. Because I'll tell you that, maybe, big fucking maybe, that, the winner of Joshua versus Ruiz might be receptive to him. They're all booked up. Is Luis Ortiz still going to be around in a year's time? I mean, I think that's a fair question, because the winner of that fight, in all likelihood, is going to be booked up for at least a year. It's the reality of things, folks. You got Pulev. Pulev is maybe fighting on the undercard for Wilder versus Fury 2. Maybe he says, what, fuck all that. I'm already the IBF mandatory. I don't want to fight on that card. I don't want to fight Kaunaki. I'm going to wait for my shot. I'm in line.
Yeah, he is.
Why would I jeopardize it now? Why the fuck would I fight Luis Ortiz? What do I get out of that? This is the problem that Luis Ortiz faces moving forward. Then what are you going to do? Yeah, there's lots of opponent options out there, but that don't mean they're receptive, and the ones that are you receptive to them? So I really don't have the foggiest fucking clue where Ortiz goes from here and what he builds towards. I really don't. And if you guys do, feel free to leave your ideas in the comments.